gratitude to the elders, to the dead ones, to the living ones, to the younger ones, and so on and so forth. In fact, the entire activity of human life has been displayed in the Holy Quran with reference to the conduct of prophets. So it is a very vast subject. But to begin with, let's first consider what a prophet is according to the definition of the Holy Quran. What should be a prophet? Why should there be a prophet at all? And what role does he play in reforming the society? And what is the objective of creating a prophet in the teeth of such grave difficulties which have been dealt with in detail in the Holy Quran? So what the purpose of this exercise must be explained first, and the Holy Quran explains that purpose very clearly. The most important and the prominent purpose of the office of prophethood is to bridge the gap between mankind and its creator, and to give them direction and the correct orientation towards their creator, that is Allah. That is, they call people to worship Allah and to worship Allah alone. This is the fundamental purpose of raising of all prophets. So starting, I have taken some verses of the Holy Quran indicating this purpose as well as some other purposes mentioned in relation to the prophets. Now, when the prophethood is a blessing of Allah, is a favor of Allah, the tasks they perform are all favors of Allah. They fall into the category of blessings and favors of Allah, because it is impossible for the prophets to perform anything which is outside the category of favors, while they are symbols of Allah's favors. They stand as favors of Allah personified. So in that regard, whatever they do, that would be a part of Allah's favors, or whatever they do would earn Allah's favors, because the sum total of their action makes them prophets. So each act of prophets is contributive towards earning Allah's favors, and if you do it completely in the manner as they do, there is a possibility that Allah may shower His favors upon you as He showered on these people earlier. So the first important thing is ibadah, that is worship of Allah. Now when you go back to the verses from which we took the new start, that is Iyyaka na'budu wa Iyyaka nasta'in, the very first thing which is mentioned there in our prayer is Iyyaka na'budu. We worship Thee and Thee alone. So when this prayer leads us to the path of the favored ones, we again start with the question of worship, because we entered our contact with Allah with the word ibadat. As you remember, all the verses previous to this verse Iyyaka na'budu speak of Allah in third person, and no conscious contact between mankind and Allah is mentioned in the earlier verses of the Surah Fatiha. The first contact which is established is by way of this prayer, Iyyaka na'budu, when we are supposed to address Allah, beseeching Him that we have decided to worship Thee alone and none other. So Abudiyyat is the most important thing, that is man's relation to Allah by way of worshipping Him. That is the most important thing which Surah Fatiha mentions. So naturally, when you reach the path of those who are favored ones, the most prominent thing among their character and conduct would be ibadat. They would be the best worshippers of Allah. They would pay the greatest stress on the worship of Allah. This is the sum total of their whole life's achievements. This is the essence of their relationship with God. So that being so, naturally they would give this preference over all other teachings. And the first teaching they would make would be, the first importance they would attach would be to worship, and to this worship they would call the whole mankind. Now this again is a common thread between prophethood. Right from the earliest till the end, this has been the common linkage between the prophets, which has never been broken. And this, according to the Holy Quran, is mentioned as Deen-e-Qayyimah. A part of Deen-e-Qayyimah, that is the lasting faith, the lasting religion, is described in the Holy Quran as Ibadah. So the entire emphasis is laid upon Ibadah, that is worship of God. This is why I have been repeatedly launching movements reminding Jamaat Ahmadiyya of paying special attention to worship. Unless we are, as far as the number is concerned, we are the best worshippers in the world, man to man. Unless, as far as the quality of the worship is concerned, we stand at the greatest excellence of worship. We will not be able to declare ourselves as representatives of prophethood, because Ibadah and prophethood are deeply ingrained into each other. They are inseparable. No prophethood can be imagined without Ibadah, that is worship. No worship can be imagined without prophets having taught you this. So, previously we started the journey without having been taught by any prophets. Just we were introduced to the attributes of God. We began to fancy those attributes. We loved the God which was being described by Surah Fatiha, and a desire was born within us. We want to worship Thee. The moment that desire was born, a prayer followed automatically, as if the desire automatically generated that prayer. Worship, of course, but what worship is, we don't know. We want to follow you. We want to do something to come into contact with you, but everything is in total darkness as far as we are concerned. We are just the novices, the newcomers into this, and we want your help. Now how that help would come unless a contact is established? How would Allah teach us? So this verse leads to Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Lead us to the path of those who have already been taught how to pray by you, and who have taught others how to pray. This was the main object of their life, their creation, the purpose of their office, to teach people how to pray. So in light of this, when we study the various references to prophets in the Holy Quran, we come to the conclusion that Ibadah is the most prominent feature of prophethood. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ إِنِّي لَكُمْ نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابَ يَوْمٍ أَلِيمٍ. And we sent Noah to his people, and he said, truly I am a plain warner to you, that you worship none but Allah. Indeed, I fear for you the punishment of a grievous day. So here another element is also introduced. That desire to worship, it seems, is a natural desire in man. If Allah had not been introduced to man, man would create his own Allahs, his own idols to worship them. So if you do not worship God, you have to worship someone. If not a God, maybe an ideal created by you yourself. If not an ideal, maybe a philosophy. If not a philosophy, maybe yourself, your own ego.